This is the Ramana Maharshi Satsang. I'm reading and reviewing the Ashtavakra Gita. Listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm not a guru or a teacher. Ramana Maharshi's teaching of non-duality is deep and profound, and I want to share it. I'm reading and commenting on the Ashtavakra Gita, an important Nidhyasana text of Advaita Vedanta, and it focuses on deep contemplation and meditation to bring what is read and reflected into your direct experience. Today is chapter 18, verses 97 to 100. And these are the final verses of this chapter where Ashtavakra is talking about the peace of a sage. Even while distracted, the Blessed One is still. In meditation, he does not meditate. In ignorance, he remains clear. Though learned, he knows nothing. The liberated one who abides unconditionally in self, who is free from the concept of action and duty, who is always and everywhere the same, is desireless. He does not worry about what he did or did not do. The wise one is neither pleased by praise nor annoyed by blame. He neither rejoices in life nor fears death. One of tranquil mind seeks neither crowds nor wilderness. He is the same wherever he goes. So let's go through these verses. 1897. Even while distracted, the Blessed One is still. In meditation, he does not meditate. In ignorance, he remains clear. Though learned, he knows nothing. This verse describes the sage who has realized the self. Even when the mind appears distracted, the sage remains inwardly unmoved and still. Meditation for them is no longer an act or a practice, but their natural state of being. In apparent ignorance, they are inwardly clear, untouched by confusion. Even great learning no longer binds them as they rest in a direct experience of the self beyond conceptual knowledge and ignorance. Ashtavakra points directly to the freedom of self-realization. Even when external events or thoughts seem distracting, there is an inner stillness that never moves. Meditation is no longer something to be practiced because the natural state itself is meditation, effortless, unbroken awareness. Even what might look like confusion or ignorance from the outside does not disturb, because clarity is not based on intellect, but on being and direct experience. Even learning and accumulated knowledge lose their hold because they are secondary to direct experience. For you, this means you do not need to wait for perfect conditions or a quiet mind to experience peace. It is already present as your own self. 1898. The liberated one who abides unconditionally in self, who is free of the concept of action and duty, who is always and everywhere the same, is desireless. He does not worry about what he did or did not do. Here, Ashtavakra speaks of the sage who abides fully in the self and is not driven to duty or obligation. Actions may occur, but the sage is not burdened with attachment or regret. The sage remains steady and the same in all circumstances. Free from desire, there is no concern about past actions or missed opportunities because identity no longer rests on accomplishment and doing, but on being. Here we are shown what it means to abide completely in the self. The liberated are not driven by the need to prove anything or to fulfill duties from a sense of personal identity. Actions still happen, but they're not tied to the ego's story of being the doer. This dissolves worry about the past and anxiety about the future because actions lose their power to define who you are. For your practice, this points to a shift from what must I accomplish to be enough to I am enough already. And from that completeness, life flows naturally. It invites you to act freely without guilt, pride, or burden. 1899. The wise one is neither pleased by praise nor annoyed by blame. He neither rejoices in life nor fears death. Ashtavakra shows the freedom of the sage who has gone beyond the pairs of opposites, praise and blame, life and death. All of these lose their power to disturb or excite. The wise one stands steady, neither uplifted by approval nor cast down by criticism. In this state, life and death are seen as natural expressions, not threats or possessions to hold on to. This verse cuts at one of the deepest roots of suffering, our reaction to external opinions and the fear of death. Praise often inflates us, and blame can deflate us, keeping us dependent on others' judgments. Similarly, we cling to life and resist the idea of death, creating constant tension. The wise have stepped out of this pattern, resting in a state where external approval or criticism does not affect their self-recognition, and life and death are seen as natural expressions within consciousness, not changes in being. For your practice, this is a call to notice where you seek validation or fear endings, and to see what you truly are is untouched by both. 18100. One of tranquil minds neither seeks crowds nor wilderness. He's the same wherever he goes. Ashtavakra points to an inner stability, not dependent on external conditions. Whether in busy environments or in solitude, the sage remains steady and unaffected. Their peace comes from within and does not rely on where they are or who surrounds them. The sage does not rely on environment for their peace. The sage knows peace as their identity. Many people believe they need to find the perfect retreat, a quiet space, or avoid busy situations to feel centered. But when peace is rooted in the self, it is unconditional and independent of location or activity. Crowds, solitude, noise, or silence are equal because none of them touch the essence of being. For your life, this means you don't have to seek or avoid specific external conditions to find peace. Peace goes with you. It is you. This verse invites you to test this by being fully present wherever you are and noticing that the stillness is already here. These verses show you that self-realization is a natural state of stillness and freedom beyond knowledge, action, and circumstance. When grounded in the self, you are undisturbed by distraction, praise, blame, solitude, or crowds, and live without regret or fear. And now a satsang discourse from Nome, realization of the ever real.
If you remain free of misidentification with the body, inclusive of all of its characteristics and activities, and if you discern the non-existence of an ego entity, you will realize that your true nature is Satchidananda, being, consciousness, bliss, without beginning and without an end. How can one realize this self-knowledge? It is imperceptible to the senses and inconceivable in thought. Sri Bhagavan says, how to realize or make more real that which is already real. We could say that if only one unrealizes the unreal, the reality will stand self-evident. The senses and their objects do not determine happiness, do not determine reality, and do not determine your identity. Understand this. Similarly, mere thought does not determine happiness, does not determine reality, and cannot be your identity. Happiness, reality, and identity are of a singular nature. That nature is your nature, what the self actually is. Inquire within, who am I? The knowledge of the self to be realized is not of a sensory character. The self to be realized is the unsensed, the unborn, and the imperishable. Who is to realize that? The embodied individual cannot do so, for the embodied individual is not real. One must look more deeply. What is truly the nature of your existence, of the innermost consciousness? That alone can know or realize itself. That which is other than the self cannot possibly do so. So, discriminate between the self and what is not the self. It is the discrimination of the real and the unreal. that which is unreal never becomes real. The reality never becomes unreal. What is not the self never becomes the self. The self never becomes anything other than what it is. The being consciousness bliss that you are never becomes a limited individual or a body or any other such thing. To suppose that it does is delusion. Inquiry puts an end to such ignorance. Who am I? The infinite and the eternal never becomes of a different nature than what it is. Transcendent of the body, how could you be finite? How could you be transitory? Transcendent of the mind, how could you be limited? How could you be momentary? An inquiry into the one who seems as if in bondage yields liberation or moksha. An inquiry to know the real nature of the apparently embodied individual reveals bodiless, absolute being, Brahman. Let your own light shine upon itself, for the nature of this knowledge is innate and self-luminous. How is one to realize that which is already real? You cannot stand apart from it in order to know it. Likewise, you cannot stand apart from it to be ignorant of it. You exist. Is there ever a time when you cease to exist? That existence should know itself with the knowledge that is natural to it. Thus, Brahman knows Brahman. And there is no unreality.
And so let's take a few minutes and inquire ourselves. You exist. Notice that you exist, and you know that you exist. And inquire, how can I rest in stillness even when my mind seems distracted? How can I live without attaching my sense of self to what I do or fail to do? How do I respond when praised or blamed? And what does that reveal about my attachments? How much of my sense of peace depends on being in certain places or approval by certain people? Who am I? What am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And we'll close with that chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. What did you get from today's session?
A lot. Thank you.
Peace, peace, peace.
Amen. Amen. What more could you want?
Now, one of the things I was remembering reading through the verses today is the equanimity that I experienced with Nome.
Mm.
Uh, spent several years on the board of directors, and I remember a time when something happened and he was very much betrayed by someone who was close to him.
Mm.
And he somehow took what I would see as a deep betrayal with just natural grace and equanimity. And his concern was mainly that it didn't mess up our practice.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And, on one hand, it is very worthwhile to hear these verses about the peace of a sage, but to actually be with one and get to see it yourself in living color.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another example is when I had a private conversation with him about his Parkinson's disease, which by that time he had had for maybe 15 years. And before we were through, we were laughing.
Mm.
So, Richard, you got to see that too, and you got to see uh, Nome and you've been to see him recently, so you still see him.
Yes, and I remember that story of the conflict. I thought it was with his brother and his brother suing him, and it reminded me of some devotee of Ramana suing him.
Uh-huh. That's right. In both cases, it was about money and possessions.
Right, and how equanimity prevailed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so the peace that Ashtavakra talked about and that we saw with Nome is something that is within ourselves. And all we have to do is kind of shut up and notice it. Anyway, namaste. Thank you again for coming together.
Wonderful.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Namo Ramanaya.
Namaste. Yep. Namo Ramanaya.